Hello, everybody. It's Emily, and I'm here with Amanda Lewan, who is the CEO and co-founder of Bamboo. Bamboo is a co-working space, for those of you who don't know, is a co-working space in Detroit, and they're also going to have a spot opening in Royal Oak. That's super exciting in a few months. Or when is that opening?
Probably September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Nice. A good Halloween party opening.
Yeah.
Maybe. You're like, don't jinx us.
Well, I'll be wearing face masks. No, I'm just
yeah, it's gonna be perfect. It's part of everyone will dress up like doctors. So Amanda is great. For those of you that don't know her, you should. But also I feel like you're like definitely one of those people that I'm kind of like when I'm trying to get a pulse on something that I'm researching and get like additional context or kind of like figure out like what's cool, what's not cool. I feel like you're like someone so solid to go to be like, hey, is this a thing? And you're like, no, it's not a thing. Or like, oh, that's totally a thing. We love that.
I'm glad I've asked things for you.
Yeah, it's like a litmus test. And you are also a writer.
Yes, yeah, I do creative writing too.
I love that. I feel like
the entrepreneurship. I never took a single business class. I have a master's degree in fiction writing. But I think good communication skills are super important in business. And if you're an independent creative, you're essentially a business owner too. And you learn along the way. As you know, our ecosystem actually has a lot of great resources. So I went through all these supplemental programs like Inform, like Goldman Sachs, small business class. And that gave me a lot more confidence. It kind of, but you also learn along the way. Like Doug has a degree in liberal arts. Like a lot of like entrepreneurs don't go to school and get like an entrepreneurship degree. I mean, you probably have data there, but that would be interesting to see. But I think, so I never planned on owning a business. Sort of stumbled into it. When we started in 2013, there wasn't a co-working space yet in downtown Detroit. We had some early accelerator program, but it was still really early. And now, fast forward 7 years, I think we have a vibrant tech and startup scene in Detroit and growing. And we're growing too. So we're looking to be more of like a regional co-working space, but also what we do is, Emily, is really build community and build that network of people, which I think is more important than ever, especially when you're at home, isolated, running a company. I mean, you got to text your CEO friends and founders and navigate these loans and these grants and all these other things. It's really important to have people that you can lean on. And I think that's what we help do too.
Definitely. Or if you're like me, I'll just start some sort of streaming thing every Monday and Wednesday and like make people talk to me live on the internet, where all the best conversations happen. Lately, I gotta like pace myself. I just go in and just like blaze everyone and then like bust out of there. Okay, so talk a little bit more about Bamboo's current areas of focus. So I feel like you guys do a lot.
Right now, we've been really trying to get a pulse on like what is the future of work. So America's had this giant experiment in response to COVID-19, which was working from home. Right, all of us had hopefully a safe environment where we could plug in the internet, have a desk, a chair, and do our work. And we wanted to see, does it actually work for people? And as they start to return to the office, what does that look like? So we put a lot of energy during the shutdown to sort of get a pulse on that. And what we're seeing is short term, people will probably want to stay at home and then slowly start to stagger back into an office. And I think the biggest shift, I mean, as we know, startups and small businesses have already been co-working and working from home and probably been more flexible. Most of our startups didn't have like a 9 to 5 culture. You just can't in the startup world. You're always working. But corporations have. And so the interesting shift for the future of work will be what corporations do. How flexible will they be? And we think flexibility is going to be better because you'll empower your employees to have choices of where they want to work. So part of that was like physically also redesigning our space, making it safer for social distancing.
Yeah.
Masks will be required in the office for a while. We know for sure that we've beat COVID or have a good treatment response. But we think that actually co-working and the future of work being more flexible is going to rise probably the next 6 months. Will be a little slow as we all start to get back to new routines and new ways of doing things. But working from home doesn't work for everybody. You probably are just as productive at home or sometimes more productive, but it depends on your situation. You also can get burnt out more if you have kids, you have distractions, and you can't meet people. You can't do whiteboard sessions. You can't do new business. It's very difficult. So
yeah, I definitely agree. We are in we're in Tech Brewery, which is a co-working space in Ann Arbor. And it's like just us and the rest of the nerds. I love it. But I do feel like there is I was at home for a good portion of time when I first started Entry Point, and it was just it's you don't have an office chair, or you don't I can't set up 2 monitors anywhere in my house, and then there's just there is a lot of distractions and things like that. So I feel like I even with things opening back up again, I'm even planning on going back in starting on the 15th of just every once in a while, at least being able to go into a space where you can kind of be on your own and go into a conference room if you need to make a phone call and it's quiet and there's not kids ah! So yeah.
Sorry, we had someone popping in for the vending machine.
No worries.
I love
you should give the little description of the things that you guys are doing for kind of
for social
distancing.
Yeah. So when you walk in, we try to envision it, and this is the challenge for small businesses, is if you have a physical space, you have to think through every step of the customer interaction, because for so long we've been afraid to leave our homes, and now we're just starting to venture out, right? So we're going to propped open, and we have signage. I'll try my best to do this on my computer. Social distancing signage that says, please wait here.
Wait, I should make
it front desk area. Sorry, I'm a little.
I was trying to make it bigger, and then I just made myself bigger. Typical.
Our main front desk area has, shields to protect our employees and make sure that people aren't leaning over edges that they might have in the past. One of the biggest physical changes is we've de-densified the space. So for at least the time being, people are going to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a little bit more spaced out. I don't know how well you can see this, but we also have dividers.
Yeah, I feel like you can see the dividers and stuff.
These dividers were locally made. And then the signage also, you are directed to only walk certain ways so that you hopefully don't hit people.
That's good.
But it gives you a little more distance.
Hey, pocket nest.
Yeah. Masks will be worn in these common areas. I'm the only person in the space right now. I'm not wearing one. Office tenants, we're letting them be flexible to set their own team decision there. And you have to do a health screening sign off before coming back, and regularly, at least now until we see how things progress. The biggest change, so then, it's a physical change. It's a little different. It won't be as busy because most people are staggering back. But I do think if people follow social distancing, maintain healthy habits. Oh, and then this was the cafe I showed you earlier, where we spaced. Yeah, it's actually nicer. You have own individual seats too.
Yeah, so that's so nice.
We've been joking around, you won't physically bump into people anymore, which is a big benefit of co-working, right? You get to bump into talent and investors. But you will have a nice, quiet, and more private and spaced out experience. And then for us, we're keeping our programming virtual to the end of the year. And we're going to try to do more intentional, one-on-one connections to make sure that even if you are working from home or you're only coming back once a week or once a month, you're still connected. I think that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, it is kind of there's so many events that happen in the fall, especially, that I'm kind of it's such a bummer that these things are getting canceled. But I also feel it's just like if you plan those things and then we end up having like a resurgence or something like that, and then you can't have them, then everyone's sort of like hurting even more than they are from this last couple of months. So it's like probably better just to be like plan for virtual.
And the good thing with virtual is like big speakers from the Valley and from outside of Detroit have been so accessible because they're not flying
Yeah.
conferences. They're just sitting around at home and they kind of want to help. And so we've actually found that to be a perk for building our ecosystem and community.
Yeah, and you guys have been doing that, the coping with COVID thing, and you're continuing to kind of do that, right?
Yeah, we're revisiting what like a season 2 might look like, but we have all of it recorded. At Bamboo, we've had so many great speakers over the past 7 years, like Sequoia Capital and Stacy from TaskRabbit, who just announced a $100 million fund with SoftBank. Like all these great people have actually physically been through our doors, and we've not recorded their talks. And so we're actually part of the coping with COVID, and we're like recording all this, and now there'll be like a nice content library. So if you miss an event, you can always go back and watch it.
Yeah, I love that because I do feel like I always see things that you guys host and think like, oh, I can't make it, or like, oh, that's at a time like I've been working a ton this week and I got to get home to the kids and like, and so like, but then being able to watch it later is so awesome. And I think a lot of the ones you guys taped with like Arlen and with I bet she's the only one. After I said her name, I was like, and the other ones. So good.
Really good.
Yeah, I can just like catch them whenever.
It was so helpful too at first because I mean, you miss seeing people, and for those of us who've maybe seen people, like we've had family over outside, and it's just nice to like be around people again a little bit and not be so always at home.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was like before I kind of figured that out, like the first, like I was saying earlier, I love how we can do our thing, like the interviewer, like how Ellen DeGeneres always be like, we were just talking at the break. It was so great. You guys all missed it. Now we can do that. Yeah, so I feel like just how we were talking, like the first 3 weeks of like the shutdown being so hard, and how it was kind of like before I had sort of figured out like you have to be really intentional about like FaceTiming and having virtual meetings and not phone calls. I'm just used to having scheduling phone conversations and calling people on the phone and not FaceTiming or something like that. It was just like, oh, we're probably going to be inside forever until the zombies just eat us. Like, probably.
Well, so, I'm interested to see what will happen. And I mean, we always learn when we have distance from something. And I think what we all went through was very traumatic. It was a forced change. And people have experienced loss, whether it's loss of business, loss of customers, loss of family members. And so there's a lot of this layered experience that we're all going through. Mm-hmm. But as we come out of it, I think we're going to still learn the facts about COVID. And you're a data person, so I'm sure you're already like been monitoring so much. But now we're hearing that it's actually probably almost unlikely that you'll get it from a surface, and more likely that it's airborne, and how people are, you know, like, so all of these things, like we like wiped down all of our groceries, like so hardcore, and then somewhere along the way we just kind of stopped doing that. So I think we still have a lot to learn in our response, and I think we're not going to know those things for some time, but that's going to affect all these behavioral changes. But for us, wearing masks and social distancing, I think, have to be a part of this new normal.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay, let me ask you some of these questions since I've asked you exactly one. So you recently wrote a piece for Cranes, which I thought was so good, where you had said the office isn't dead, it's just bending. So like, what are you seeing with evolving work styles and company culture?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing will be corporations and the decisions that they make, whether it's Facebook not talking about doing more distributed offices, which was a trend for a while, which could positively impact the Michigan ecosystem, because you might have more tech companies looking outside of big, dense urban areas where they can only build massive campuses and doing smaller, more flexible offices. And then from our customers, which are mostly startups and small businesses, they're not coming back day to day yet. They're going to come back probably once per week or twice per week, or having critical offsite meetings. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be more flexible than it was before. We've essentially proven in most cases, for most organizations, you can actually work at home. like, you can get your work done, but your personal preference might be something different. And we think companies, well, what we're hearing too from our industry and from some of the data that they have pulled is if you're going to force people to go back to the office and force them to do things, they're probably going to leave and look for more flexible work situations right now, at least with the current state. And so encouraging flexibility is going to be super important. And then co-working comes and helps by being one of the most flexible choices. You can do month to month. We even think people are going to be like, I just want an office for a week because I really have to commit to a project. So even more short-term rentals will be a bigger increase in trend that we'll see.
Yeah, and I could definitely see too, especially if we kind of end up heading into more of a recession after all of this, that's when a lot of people start businesses and things like that, and you can't just afford a static office. You definitely need to have like co-working and people you can bounce ideas off of. So I do feel like it seems like there'll be like a major rise in co-working.
One of the biggest things, well, actually, our market, co-working in general, was getting a little crowded. And so I think it was kind of shifting and evening out. And so it will be interesting to see. I think it will grow in the next couple of years. But you were saying for startup companies, something we offer that we see a lot of people do, especially now, is set up a virtual office. So getting that mailbox, setting up your downtown Detroit or your Main Street office presence, tapping into the events in the community, and just having like a couple hours of conference room time. We're lucky we offered that before the shutdown, and that essentially was the only thing we could offer during shutdown. And so those are like a really easy, low-cost membership way to like actually just set up your company and get started.
I'm like watching, my son's turning 1 this weekend, and I'm like watching him crawl around in the front yard, and I'm like, is anybody watching him? He just let himself. I'm like, who is out there watching him, or is he just? Anyway, someone's there now. But yeah, sorry, I was like so distracted by that. I was like, okay. So I wanted to ask you one more. I've got a couple more questions, but so you guys were a sponsor of the 2020 Detroit report. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the upcoming Ann Arbor report. But the report shows 38 venture-backed companies are located in Detroit. And many of those companies have had offices at Bamboo one time or another. I feel like you guys are like so tapped into the larger ecosystem. So what type of community support do you think these kinds of the kinds of companies that you work with closely will need after we are able to fully return to normal activities?
That's a good question. I think
solve all of the world's problems in one question.
Yeah, I got stumbled on like when things return to normal because it's still in this like hybrid new normal where we're all kind of readjusting and changing our models slightly. But I think most of the startups that I've talked to or that we've worked with are actually doing okay. Some were in the middle of a fundraise. Some still were able to close funding during the shutdown. And some immediate follow-on funding came from Invest Detroit. Like we had Patty on our COVID show about how within 30 days they launched like a couple million in funding for the early stage startup community. And that was so helpful.
Yeah, I love everything. They're doing so many things. You go to their website and it's like, oh, here's a host of programs to solve your every need. I'm like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah, so that was huge. Others, fundraising has just been a little bit slower. So that's for the venture-backed ones, but they're still seeing funding come in. And some of them already had enough that they could hibernate, and some were a little less impacted. It just really depended on the product or service and the stage they were at. The earlier stage ones that were really early and maybe just starting their fundraising journey, I think it was really challenging for them because they were still developing the product, the team, just starting to have those pitch meetings. But what we learned through our show from a lot of the venture capitalists was that you should still be building those relationships. Even if you're not sure if they're actively investing, it doesn't hurt to build those relationships now. I think the venture capital community will start to more actively fundraise probably later towards the, or invest if they're not already now, like later towards the end of the year. I think everyone was just being very cautious to support their current portfolios. So I still feel really optimistic that coming out of this, a lot of our startups are still going to be around and still be thriving. And it might be to be leaner and actually figure out their customer quicker.
Yeah, I tend to agree because I also think that just by nature, a lot of tech companies are already sort of set up to be are more virtual. Like they've got everything in Dropbox or everything like, so that people can be wherever. And then luckily, if people feel like they want to double check my facts here, in the most recent MVCA report that we did, the venture capitalists that were that have offices in Michigan at least, or headquarters in Michigan, had a really good fundraising year last year. And so many of them just finished fundraising prior to 2020 starting. So I feel like that will also sort of soften the blow for a lot of startups that are fundraising, because at least the local venture community, I feel like, has kind of just missed this year of fundraising, so they have capital that they're available to invest for new businesses. So I feel like that will be, I was like, whoo, well, that's good.
A couple that we talked to, the Hustle Fund had just closed their fund and they're doing 25 to 250K checks. Invest Detroit had that follow-up fund. So I definitely would, if there are high growth startups listening, stay positive and keep going on your fundraising journey. But be aware that we did also hear some stories where VCs were being a lot more aggressive with terms because they sort of felt like the cards were in their hands.
It's what we need in the Midwest, right? Like, people are getting more conservative. What? Not possible.
I don't think that was a Midwest VC. I think that was an out-of-state one. But anyhow, just something to be aware of, I think, for those.
Yeah, that's true. I could definitely see that. Okay, so we'll kind of end this because I know we're running out of time here a little bit. So as a Detroit resident, what is something you're looking forward to doing this summer?
Mark and I were just talking about going kayaking on the Detroit River, which is super fun, and over by the Island View community. You can go down some of that area. And we were just at Belle Isle for the first time in a while.
Oh, nice.
And it was just so gorgeous.
When are they opening the aquarium? Do you know?
I don't know. No. But we went and we took our dog out there, and it's gorgeous. So we're very thankful that we still have a lot of these parks and these spaces. Even though we're a little more careful around others and interacting there, I think we can still take advantage of them this summer.
It's been amazing how many people have answered that question with kayaking. Like on Monday, Neil from the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, when I asked him the same question, said kayaking.
We were just
here on River yesterday. So I was like, am I missing out? I need to be doing some kayaking up there. That are selling kayaks. Entry points not working out. We're selling kayaks now on it. Oh shoot! It looks like we lost. Maybe. Oh no, you're there. Okay, you froze for a second there. I was like, oh well, in broadcast.
I guess maybe to answer that question professionally, I think Mark and I were talking a lot about this. My husband Mark just exited his company. So in the morning, we've been starting our mornings much slower pace, like reading or reflecting and writing versus jumping in our car and rushing to the office. And that is something that we're not going to change. So even when I do come back to Bamboo, I'm going to stagger my time in my day too. I have a team here that can help day to day, but we just don't want to jump back into a grind. We want to be more intentional. And for those who have had a privilege to pause, I think that is a good way to remember as you re-enter. You don't have to go back to bad habits of working all the time or rushing to get places or packing your day with meetings and not actually taking care of yourself or reflecting more before you start your day. And that's something that we're both going to make sure that we do.
Yeah, that is really good to think about, just the differences between how things have been the last couple of months versus how things were prior to that, and what it kind of does show you what's important to you in your day and what's not important, and things that can kind of be let go. And I feel like I have the opposite experience. I'm haggard after these 3 months.
We don't have kids. It's just me and Mark, so I think that's a bigger challenge too if you have young kids at home, right?
I'm just they just take care of, as you can see, they just take care of themselves in the yard. But yeah, cool. All right. Well, it's so good seeing you. I'll let you go about your day. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon and hopefully catching up a little bit more and maybe having some wine at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone should check out Bamboo on the interwebs. It's like such an awesome space. You kind of got to see it here, but I feel like the website is like so great. What were you going to say?
One more plug. We just were a partner in Detroit Startup Week, and
right.
Huge ecosystem event. Most people listening probably know about it. 10,000 people usually come out for it every year, and it's all virtual. And Monica Weed and Nina Payne and Olivia Guterson have been like working so hard to make it a great experience that still brings the community together. So that registration for that event, it's all free. It starts June 22nd. Go to DetroitStartupWeek.com, or maybe we can post it, Emily, in the chat. But I just wanted to make sure that that was really important to us because we knew that consistency was important, and people really look forward to that event. Look forward to speaking. It's all free, and you can register right now, and it's all virtual for the week.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love that. I just saw that start to come out, and that's definitely something I'm like into every year. So like everyone should definitely look at that. And then I'll post it in the
chat. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, yay. Okay, sweet. I will talk to you again soon.
Bye.